Hello everyone, it's Mr. Brem. I just have a short video prepared for you before you submit your final project for this course. This video is really going to cover two major things. The first thing it's going to cover are the sort of typical questions that are associated with this project, and also important things that I look for in this project, and even simple things that I look for in this project. The other thing the video will cover are the typical mistakes people make, not just with this project, but with most of the writing which is submitted to me. So on that note, let's kind of look at some of the things about this evaluation project. Firstly are the titles. I have seen these titles misspelled in so many different and terrible ways that I've decided to show them to you one more time for you to see them and just to make sure you're talking about the correct thing. For instance, with Ben-Hur, that's the title. Yes, it's Ben-Hur, A Tale of the Christ, but Ben-Hur is fine. Ben-Hur is also the name of the character. You have to use the full Ben-Hur with the hyphen for that. Capitalize the H as well. His first name is Judah, but it's not just Ben or it's not just Her. Stagecoach, all one word. Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. Now, the book is Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, as is the modern remake. But the film that we watched was Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. Note all of the capitalization. That's probably one of the major ways that people misdo titles, is that they are not only misspelling words, but that they're not capitalizing the correct words. A Few Good Men, don't forget to capitalize the A in A Few Good Men. Schindler's List, note the spelling of Schindler with the C after the S, and obviously do not forget the apostrophe. Life is Beautiful, capitalize the I in is. You could call it La Vita è Bella, but we'll just use the typical English term. Then we watched, this is just the order we watched the films in. To Save a Life, it is not called How to Save a Life. It's just called To Save a Life. You do not capitalize the A, but you capitalize all of the other words. Then we saw Gattaca, made-up word, it is what it is. And lastly, the other film to include is The Mission. Don't forget to capitalize and include the word the. As I said to you earlier, you could include I confess if you wanted to, but I'm simply not going to require it because I gave you the project before you even saw the movie I Confess. So that's just to keep it a little fair. If you want to, that's very helpful. Also, another thing, and this is important, italicize your titles. All of them throughout the entire paper, from question 1 through question 6, all of your titles should be italicized. So just right before you print and submit, check through one final time. There's some other things that really relate to this project that you should be wary of. Firstly, talk about characters and not the actors. This showed up for a lot of your projects more recently, as you told me a lot about the actor who played a particular character, whether Liam Neeson or Jude Law or whoever it was. That's nice, but unless you're specifically talking about a performance, you really should be talking about the character. So don't say, Liam Neeson in The Mission or Liam Neeson in Schindler's List. You're going to be talking more so about characters and plot, so you'd be talking about Oscar Schindler, or you'd be talking about Fielding, I think is his name. In terms of a title for this, really it's not that important. You can just make a title. You can call it the project, you can call it the evaluation, you can call it fourth quarter project. It doesn't matter. Just make something up if you have to. You can even just skip it if you really want to, and get to work. And the title I'm talking about is the title for your paper, not the titles of the movies. No, I do not need the question names. Your each paragraph should be your answer to the questions, 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. So it should be obvious. And also the first sentence should be obvious. When you say, my favorite film was this, or my least favorite film that should go is that, I don't really need the question names. You could number the paragraphs, but also that is not essential. I need more information than a film is cool or boring. If it's boring, why is it boring? Is it boring because it's in a different language and you do not like subtitles? Is it cool because of the action scenes or because of the story? Get into detail with your answers. Do not be afraid to write or type, as the case may be. Give me more information than, oh, it was good or it was bad, the end. There should be no need for a reference page or a works cited page. Even if you decide to quote something from a film, that's great if it's from one of the films that we saw, but I will take your word that you got it from the film, and that should be sufficient. So don't bother with a works cited page unless you're going to pull in a lot more resources than the assignment even calls for. Now, question 1. This is question 1 and question 6 are probably the two most confusing questions for some people. For question 1, I'm looking for something like this. And by something like this, I mean exactly like this. You could put this in your paper and that would be completely fine. I need 2 lists for question 1. A list of the good movies and a list of the bad movies. And I need you to rank all of them. From the best to, still pretty good, still, okay, somewhat good. And I need a list of the bad films, from worst to somewhat bad. Include all of the films. There are 9 films that are part of this assignment, so you should have 9 total between the 2 lists. Do not leave any films out. This isn't just the best and the worst. You should have 9. I just put this in alphabetical order, but you could have 2 movies on one side, you can have 5 and 4, you could have 8 and 1, it doesn't matter. Whichever way you feel about the movies, whether you like them or did not like them, the good movies and the bad movies. That should be that. Questions 2 through 5 are fairly straightforward. Question 2 asks you you said which film was your favorite film. If you think about it, it was the previous slide, the previous question, you list the top film, your best film. So say, why is it your favorite film? Question 3 is, which is the highest quality film? Maybe it is your favorite film, maybe it's not. Question 4, which is the most religious film and why? It might be one of the films in questions 2 or 3, it might not. And lastly, question 5 is, which is your least favorite film? If you had to pick just one, which is not your favorite. Question 6 is really just calling upon you to answer about other films. It could be 1 long paragraph or it could be 3 small ones. It's your decision. All this question is really asking is for you to elaborate on 3 movies which were not the answer to questions 2 through 5. Remember, 2 through 5 is your favorite, the best, the most religious, and your least favorite. Well, there are other films that fall in the middle. So what did you think about those middle films? It was good, but you didn't like this. It was amazing, but it was kind of silly. Whatever you're thinking. I just need your thoughts on them, whether you like them, how you felt about them, how you felt about the stories involving them. So by the end of this paper, I should have heard a lot of your thoughts on most of the films. Other things. In terms of style, punctuation, and correctness, these are just the most common errors that I tend to see in this. Do not use the word very, really, or so. So in the same meaning as very or really. You can use so in different ways. Don't tell me the movie was very interesting. You could just write that it was interesting, or you can write that it was entertaining, or you can write that it was not interesting. You don't need to use the word very or really or so to communicate that. If you need to use word, you might use the word extremely, but you would only use that in extreme cases. Comma placement, punctuation is probably one of the most common problems in writing. For instance, in a series, do not forget to include the comma before and after, it says X, Y, and Z. Don't forget to include that comma after Y, for instance, whatever the series is. If it's just 2 items in a series, you would not need a comma. Once it's 3 or more, you need the comma. Also involving commas are incorrect commas. Comma splices and run-on sentences are when you have a compound sentence and it's not correctly, there's no correct punctuation in the middle. A run-on sentence is pretty much there's no punctuation between the 2 sentences. A comma splice is you put a comma, but a comma was not enough. It needed a comma with a connecting word, or you may have needed a semicolon, or if you're really nervous about this, just don't write compound sentences. You should not use compound sentences that frequently in writing. Remember, your paper is only supposed to be double-spaced. Now, most of you will do that, but in most cases, Word is automatically set up to include an extra space between paragraphs. And it will make your heading look significantly larger than it should be. So what you should do is, once you've written everything, or you can even do this at the beginning, is to select all, and then go into Format and into Paragraphs if you're using Word. This is typically where it is, or line spacing somewhere. And there's an option that says to not add a space after paragraphs, and that will keep it to a very nice double-spaced without extra spaces. The extra spaces after a line, especially after a paragraph, is incorrect. Same thing, I already told you this, Times New Roman 12 point. Double check your paper, selecting all, making the font into this. This happens sometimes when people copy and paste, which should not be too much of a problem in this paper. And lastly, look for common mistakes involving words which are simply not accurate. For instance, the should have or could have or would have. Remember, the word is have, not of. So beware of that. Make sure when you're using its or its that you're using the correct one. With an apostrophe, it means it is. Without an apostrophe, it's possessive. It means belonging to it. And finally, the there, they are, or the possessive one. The next one is property of them. And the last one there typically refers to a place, but not always. So anyway, those are my brief thoughts on your paper. I recommend watching this video and then either finish writing your paper, start writing your paper, or before you print your paper, check it through for these very common errors, and you should have a very strong paper to present. I look forward to reading your thoughts, hearing your ideas, your evaluations of these 9 films. Hopefully you think they're 9 good films, but you can't please everyone, and I understand that. And I look forward to reading it, and I will see you in class. Have a good day.